Today we're talking about intuition, that little voice that tells you to take a different route home, the feeling that something just isn't right, the sudden knowing that arrives before your logical mind can explain it. But what exactly is intuition? How is it different from instinct, fear, anxiety, wishful thinking, or just plain guessing? Can everyone access it? And if intuition is speaking to us all the time, why do so many people struggle to hear it? And as always, we're asking the question, are you psychic too? Hey, star people. Welcome back to Are You Psychic Too? The podcast where we explore intuition, spirituality, synchronicity, and all the strange and wonderful ways the universe seems to communicate with us. Today, we're talking about something that sits at the heart of nearly every spiritual path, every psychic experience, and every meaningful coincidence we've discussed so far. Intuition. Whether you consider yourself psychic or not, chances are you've experienced intuition many times in your life. You may just not have called it that. I'm your host, Cliff, but I could not do this alone. Jenni, Kelsey, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thank you. This is Jenni.
Hi, I'm good. I'm Kelsey.
All right. So today we're talking about intuition, and I guess at its simplest, intuition is knowing something without consciously knowing how you know it. It often arrives before logic, before analysis, before evidence. Maybe you've ignored a little inner nudge and later wished you hadn't. Or you followed one instead and wondered how it knew. Or experienced a moment of knowing that logic could not quite explain. Most of us have experienced moments like these. We may not all agree on what intuition is, but we've probably all felt it at one time or another. So let's start there. Guys, what exactly is intuition to you?
To me, intuition is the language of the psyche. It's the information that comes before reasoning or logic. And it doesn't replace logic. It precedes it. So I believe that logic analyzes what intuition perceives first. And I think it's the ability to understand or know something from the unconscious realm without the reasoning involved first. It comes from the word inturi, that's Latin, to look within or to behold.
There's our Latin lesson for the day.
That's
Kels, how about you? What does it look like for you?
I agree with Jenni. I think intuition is a really strong knowing before any logic, any reasoning can get to it. Before you get into the analyzing in your brain, intuition is that gut feeling that you just know something's happening or something's there.
Okay, I know we're not supposed to all agree with each other, but I kind of agree with both of you. I think that's how intuition represents itself to me. It's kind of a knowing versus a logical understanding of something. What about your definition of intuition? Has it changed over time?
I don't think it's really changed. I do think it's more developed. You know, I've had time practicing getting into my intuition. And so I have a better understanding of what that feels like, what that looks like for me. But I don't think it's ever changed. Now looking back before being intuitive, I definitely see how I would talk myself out of my intuition a lot, all the time.
Really?
And
Well,
I think,
how would that work?
well, I think it's from training, like conditioning, programming, like your upbringing. You feel something's wrong with mom and dad. You tell them like, what's going on? And they're like, no, nothing's happening. We're fine.
Right.
You know?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
I believe it hasn't changed, but like Kelsey said, I've learned to listen to it. I know its value and how much it's trying, wherever it's coming from, it's trying to guide us, not necessarily to predict the future, but to help us unfold who we are and who we are becoming. And so Kelsey said, oh, before I was intuitive, she was always intuitive, but now she understands and discerns, which is different, and uses it every day.
And she's more aware of it. She's more aware of her intuition.
Right.
So do you guys think that intuition is something that everybody has?
Absolutely. I think everybody has intuition. I think it's just a matter of building that relationship with your intuition that's built on trust. And discernment. And it's a full-on relationship with yourself and your guides and your team and your higher self.
I agree that it's a strong force when you are listening.
I just keep thinking about the first time someone told me that I was very intuitive when I went to that psychic. She said, your third eye is the strongest chakra that you have. You're highly intuitive. And I just thought, like, this lady is crazy. There's no way. But then looking back, I'm like, well, maybe I did live a life of being in my intuition, but just not even realizing it. Yeah. So I think that probably happens for the majority of people. It's like they're being guided. They don't know what's guiding them. They just know that they have this feeling.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's when you become aware of it, that's when you start to develop it. It's like anything. It's a muscle you have to exercise and practice with.
And not try to explain away.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you guys, does your intuition arrive as a feeling, an image, a knowing, a dream, or some other form? How does it come to you?
I would say all of the above. However, I do work with all of those separate ways of communicating intuition. And intuition is that information that comes to you in whatever mode that it does.
What's your strongest version of these ones? Because, like, for example, for me, it's definitely a knowing. That's my strongest way. I get it in dreams and sometimes an odd image or something, but for me, it's always a knowing. So what's your strongest go-to?
I would say it's a knowing that is not attached to any sort of emotion, thought form, or I wanted to say complex, but you're going to give me shit for that. So I'm not going to say that.
No.
Okay.
Nobody's going to give you shit for anything. Say what you want.
Or complex, because those have energy behind them that aren't neutral.
Yeah. That's well explained. I would agree with that.
However broken up that came out.
No, I get it. I feel the exact same. Like, it's a really strong knowing that's not attached to any of that energy, right?
It's also not familiar.
Personal energy, emotions, right? Biases, opinions, thoughts.
Personal bias. Yeah.
Okay. If it's familiar, it's usually attached to something that is in your complex zone.
Okay, let's talk about intuition versus instincts, because those guys get confused. One thing that people often confuse is intuition and instincts. While they are related, they're not necessarily the same thing. Instinct is often about survival. It's fast, proactive, automatic. It's the part of you that jumps out of the way of a moving car. It is deeply rooted in the body. Intuition feels different. It tends to be quieter, less urgent, more like a gentle nudge than a sudden alarm bell. Instinct says, run. Sorry. Intuition says, listen. Of course, the line between the two isn't always clear, and we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about that distinction right now. But how do you guys personally tell the difference between intuition and instinct?
I feel that instinct is the body's knowing, and it is geared toward survival. So our human self has instinct. And I feel that intuition is guided by our higher self or our spiritual self, and doesn't come from just the will to survive, and comes from the will to thrive, maybe spiritually. I feel like instinct is the body knows, and intuition is the psyche or the soul knows.
Okay. Kels?
Interesting. I think intuition and instincts could be the same.
Okay.
I get that instincts is more about survival, but why couldn't that also be your intuition speaking more loudly? Like if we're all connected, how could it is a really hard distinction between the two and separating them. Because why wouldn't that be your higher self being like, jump, get out of the way? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like in my times of when I felt the most unsafe, I felt a sense of calm, which could be my instincts, but I always felt like that's when I was most connected to my intuition,
Well,
going on, okay, so this is an example, like going on a scary roller coaster when I was a kid and I thought I was going to die. But I was like rushed with this sudden feeling of calmness and still, and something telling me like, you're okay. You're going to be fine. Was that my instincts or was that my intuition? I feel like it's both.
Maybe it depends on what your body was doing.
I don't know. Yeah.
Body might have been your accelerated heart rate.
Yeah.
Knowing it was going into danger or potential danger or excitement. But your mind calmed your body.
That kind of brings on the question, what does intuition feel like in your body compared to fear?
Intuition, what it feels like typically is it's a very it's a comforting feeling. Like I feel like I'm being comforted, or I'm being calm, or I'm being kind of taken care of. I don't know how to explain this. It's kind of like if my mom were to come and give me a big hug. That's what it feels like when I'm really in my intuition. Well, in that particular
instinct is I don't think instinct is that huggy. It's more of a like, hey, a slap on the face sort of.
Well, since we're talking about the body, I think it's interesting. I was researching, what did the ancients call intuition back in the day when they were in their mystical realm? And so, of course, I went into biblical. And what I noticed is that in most ancient biblical texts, at least, it would be described as wisdom from the heart, or it was always heart-centered. It was an understanding heart, or a wisdom given in the heart. And so I think that's kind of relevant because since intuition is what we would describe as traveling through the feminine channels and through the heart, right? Perhaps that's why they describe something that they knew as being centered in the heart, whereas we've got more language for it in the nowadays.
Yeah, and
the heart doesn't have fear is where I was going.
My body doesn't have fear. No.
Wow.
Like jumping off of cliffs and stuff. I live in Hawaii. I live in a crazy place where we get to do wild things. And nothing in my body was telling me not to do it. I was
Me
like,
too.
Okay,
I jumped off South Point, the big island, 40 feet.
I jumped off shipwrecks. I don't know how big that is.
Love that.
I jumped off that little tiny one that you took me to, Kelsey, that was like 30 feet.
I think it was like 15.
Oh, well, 15 feet. Sorry. 15 meters. Let's talk about what intuition is not. Intuition isn't fear. It isn't anxiety. It isn't wishful thinking. And it isn't automatically the loudest voice in your head. Fear tends to feel urgent. Anxiety tends to repeat itself over and over and over. And wishful thinking often tells us exactly what we want to hear. Intuition is often much quieter. Sometimes it delivers a message once and then leaves the decision up to us. Learning intuition isn't only about hearing guidance. It's also about learning to recognize what guidance isn't. So, guys, have you ever ignored your intuition? And if so, what happened afterwards?
Yes, I have such a funny story about ignoring my intuition. I don't know if I've told this story before, but when I was pregnant with my last child, I really wanted a girl. I had 2 boys by then, and I was pregnant again. Before finding out the gender, I really wanted a girl. And I did this little intuition test, right, to figure out the gender. And I remember getting that it was a boy. And I was like, are you sure it's a boy? And so by then I feel like my guys are like, girl, like whatever you want then, fine, it's a girl. And so I walked around telling everybody like, I'm going to have a girl. My intuition told me. And then I had a boy. That was a big knock.
Jen, how about you?
I think that there is no fear within intuition because it just kind of comes over as data. And so if fear says something is bad is going to happen, intuition says something is true. Can those two be the same? Yeah. Fear kind of predicts, or it aligns with what happens after we get the intuition, where we logically try to reason it out or explain it, because we really like certainty. And intuition doesn't come over that way. It's not certain. It kind of just says, it just gives you information that once again is neutral. But we are so programmed, like Kelsey said, to want certainty. And if we can't explain it, we want to say it isn't real. Yet, one of life's biggest decisions, like who we love, that can't be explained by reason or logic. And so intuition has to play a part in that, right?
Sure. Now, do you guys think that intuition can become distorted when you mix it with strong emotions?
No, I think our emotions are what makes it distorted.
Then the answer is yes to that. I agree. I think of it like your intuition is a radio signal and strong emotions are a really noisy radio signal. They're going to distort your intuition signal. So they're definitely going to affect it. And I think that's what you're saying, right, Kels?
Yeah. I think it is basically the same thing, but I was thinking of it in a different way. That's so.
Well, just how were you thinking? Maybe your way makes more sense than mine.
Like the message isn't distorted.
Right.
Like the intuition, that part's not distorted. The distorted part, it's the emotions.
Right. They
cloud it.
They can affect it. They can affect your understanding of your intuition. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
So basically, basically what you said.
Does that make sense to you, Jen?
Yes, absolutely. I think that they don't come with emotions. So if emotions are present, then maybe that's what makes us question the intuition, or we have a reaction to what it is. In my story, or my, probably strongest intuitive story, was when I was in the bathtub at the ranch in New Mexico, and I was just calm, taking a bath in there for like 40 minutes. And then I get a strong intuition and also a voice that said, "Get out now." I did not waver. I absolutely got out. Instinct took over to hearing that, "Get out now," right? Danger. Got out, didn't even get a towel, and started running and saying, something's wrong. And 60 seconds after I got out, that bathroom closet propane exploded and I would have been decapitated. So is that intuition? Yes, because I was fine. I didn't have any fear before, and I didn't have any fear when getting that. But had I not listened, I wouldn't be here. So listen to your intuition. Listen.
You started this by saying that intuition doesn't have any emotion. And I was all ready to say, yeah, I agree. Intuition doesn't have emotion. But then your story just described intuition that was very emotional because it was yelling at you to get out. So I don't know now.
It didn't come with an emotion. It came with an order. Get out now. And emotions followed it when looking back on it.
Okay.
And when telling the story, there's emotions because I was in shock. I didn't for a little while, for a minute, to be honest. I was, and not just in shock about the explosion and the subsequent fire consuming my whole home and everything I've ever owned, the shock of having been warned.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Something's looking out for me.
When you hear that voice, it's like, see, the difference is you listened to yours. I ignored mine.
And you do ignore. And I always say, you should have listened, Claire.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into those stories in a minute, but let's talk for a second about why intuition can be hard to hear. Because for one, intuition is natural, but why do people struggle with it so much? Well, modern life is noisy. You got phones, you got news, social media, responsibilities, internal dialogue all the time going on. Intuition often doesn't shout like it did for you that one day, Jenni. It whispers. And whispers are easy to miss when there's too much noise. That's one reason so many spiritual traditions emphasize meditation, mindfulness, taking time in nature. And not because intuition suddenly appears there, but because those practices make it easier to notice what was already present. So, you guys, what tends to interfere with your intuition the most?
My mind. I feel
Yeah.
like we are so conditioned to question everything, question the intuition. Like, where is that coming from? And because there is no logic, there's no reason, our mind is going to create this logic behind, like, to dismiss it.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so we're trained to listen to the brain instead of the intuition. And then on top of that, I feel like social media, electronics, devices, they're pulling you further away from your intuition and bringing you outside of yourself, looking for answers beyond internal, like what's happening inside.
Or not even looking for answers, just doom scrolling.
Oh God. I just chat GPT, all of it. I'm like, it's good. It's really good, but it's also really bad.
Yeah.
I think the apps that you have, all of it.
I'll bring science back into this by mentioning Albert Einstein, who is quoted saying the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. And we have become a society that honors the servant while totally forgetting the gift. He said, intuition is the only real valuable thing. And so it's interesting that a scientist says that, because he was probably trying to bridge the two as well.
Yeah, he definitely had a finger in. He wasn't just a scientist. He had a spiritual side as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you guys think that this modern life that we're living now makes it harder to trust our intuition?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, I remember my friend was telling me that they downloaded an app, and this is to help raise their infant. Like she'd given birth, and it has like a sleep schedule, and they're trying to get the baby like
what
on that sleep schedule. I know, it was kind of like,
there's an app for everything.
There's an app for everything, and I think it just brought you further away from your intuition, because
and instinct.
Exactly. Because when I remember having my kids, we didn't have that kind of technology yet. Well, maybe we did, and I just wasn't aware. But I was not focused on what was happening outside of me. Everything that I was, in the way that I was raising my kid, was all internal. And everything, like, I remember the doctors being like, you can't co-sleep. They have to sleep in their own bed. I was like, this feels unnatural, and I can't ignore that. And so I slept with my baby, and it was fine. We were safe.
Yeah, that's your instinct. Yeah, I knew I was going to have a boy. I wrote my mom a card from her grandson, and I was only 6 weeks along. And she said, how do you know it's a boy? And I'm like, I don't know, but I do. I just know. There's when mothers have huge intuition and instinct that tend to blend.
Absolutely.
Why do you think that? I mean, I completely agree. Women definitely have an intuitive edge over men in a lot of ways, and I think it's because they raise children. Why do you think that is? Is it because they have to nurture kids and they have to care for them, and save them, and
you are their lifeline. Like, your child's survival is completely dependent on the mom. And so I noticed with my kids, I could tell each cry. I knew exactly, like, for each cry. What was the hungry cry, the pain cry, the change my diaper cry, the I need a burp cry. Like I knew every single one. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I still feel that with other kids. I'm like, I know what they need.
And I believe that there is nothing more sacredly feminine than being a creator, and you are building a human within you. I mean, you're in your feminine function right then, and the feminine function is the most intuitive space. So maybe it's hormones, maybe it's just being connected to a being that you are responsible for caring for.
Yeah. I do think, I know I mentioned before that the psychic reading that I had was like my awakening moment, but I do think the development of my intuition began when I became a mom, when I was pregnant. Yeah. I do feel like I was communicating with my child while they were in the womb. You know,
and also, I think it's not necessarily just mothers to kids, because when I was a little kid, my older sister, like when I was real little and couldn't talk and just was like, my sister would go, oh, he wants food, or, oh, he needs to do this. Or she knew exactly what I was saying. And she would tell my mom, who was apparently not that intuitive or whatever. And so it wasn't, I mean, she did become a mother later in life. So maybe it was.
And that's an interesting point, because children, as we've talked about before, are just they're closer to soul, their age, right? So they're just more spiritual naturally.
Yeah.
So, she was perhaps intuitively helping out your mom, who was like, I can't understand this child. He's, I'm deductive reasoning this thing, and so she helped out knowing you needed it.
Yeah. And I think you just tapped on another episode we should do, is on our invisible friends when we were 5 years and younger.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the episode we're actually doing right now for a second, and talk about what intuition feels like. So people describe intuition in different ways. Some experience it as a feeling in the body, a sensation in the stomach, maybe a tightening in the chest, maybe a sense of expansion or peace. And others experience it as a thought that seems to arrive fully formed. Some describe hearing an inner voice. Others receive images, symbols, dreams, sudden insights, downloads. There doesn't seem to be one universal way that intuition communicates. What matters is learning how it tends to communicate with you. So, do you guys believe that intuition comes from the unconscious mind, spirit, both, or maybe somewhere else?
Well, my perspective, because of Jungian psychology, that believes that the unconscious is everything that we don't know. So in my view, intuition would come from that. It's not in our conscious mind, but intuition isn't another voice like competing for our attention. It's learning to listen to it, because we spend so much of our time trying to figure things out and make them different,
So wait, so you're saying that it comes from the unconscious mind, then your intuition does not come from spirit?
I believe they're the same. I think it's the unconscious. It involves, how in dreams, the ocean is seen as spirituality, and the unconscious or feelings or the unknown. Sure. It's kind of all, that's how I would kind of describe it, as it's all kind of together. We don't truly know where it's coming from.
It's all the same.
Yeah. So both.
Maybe.
Both.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it does come from both. Whether they're the same thing, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one, but I think that both contribute to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. I see it as like a connection or a cord. And this is just the image that I saw right now. It was like a cord to source. So like whatever you believe in, God, the universe, source, higher power.
You talk about that silver cord that connects us to the one source, one force?
Yeah. Okay. I think that's the intuition, right? Like I see it as like your purest connection to the divine. Like,
yeah,
maybe that is the subconscious, I don't know, or unconscious mind.
Yeah, exactly. Then we get into kind of the semantics of what do different words mean and stuff. But yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of both of those. So I've got an easy experiment for everybody, all those listeners out there. So the next time you guys have a simple decision to make, just pause for a moment and ask yourself, if I already knew the answer, what would it be? And then notice the first response that arises before your mind starts analyzing it. And I'm going to guess that you're going to be surprised by what comes up. So, guys, have you ever deliberately tested your intuition?
I'm still testing it. That's actually a really good point. In the very beginning, when I was developing this relationship with my intuition, understanding, and discerning, I had a dream to write down my messages. And that was the whole message of the dream, that I needed to continue to journal what I was picking up or perceiving, and to see if it would happen. And I think a lot of the stuff that I wrote down came true.
How did that message come to you?
It was a direct knowing. It's that knowing feeling of I just know that I have a strong feeling that this is going to happen. And I think that was one of my first exercises that I did to develop that.
Jen, how about you?
I believe it becomes a habit to use the intuition and test it all day.
Yeah.
Every day as you get more practiced, or if you work within this spiritual space. It's just, and it will become louder and louder, and you will listen more and more. And that kind of gets you to your true self and your own truth. And that's kind of the road I've been on a long time. And I believe that, in addition to talking about the modernity of our society right now, I also believe that the spiritual aspect of things is also elevating. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So whether it's difficult or not because of all of the information coming in, maybe everyone is dealing with this and trying to decipher what is what. And that's what actually has them listening more to their intuition, which is really positive.
Yeah. And that actually brings up another point. What would you guys recommend for some safe, everyday way that people could start building confidence in their own intuition?
Well, I think practicing, so you have to practice to get into that state where you can start listening. So in the very beginning, Jenni mentioned intuition is it's not attached to anything. It's not attached to emotions. There's no biases. So practice getting into that neutral state of complete unattachment to anything, unattachment to the outcome, because that's really hard. But that is the space that you need to be in to start listening to the intuition, because you're not going to judge it. And then start writing them down.
Yeah. And the way I do it is I test my intuition by asking stupid little questions that I can easily find out the answer to, or will find out the answer to in a short amount of time. Like if I'm going to the dentist, I'll say, okay, my bill from the dentist is going to be less than this amount of money. And then I use my intuition on it, and then I'll go and I can test it and say, oh, I was right or I was wrong. And so I just do it with simple little things like that. Sort of like the experiment that I explained a couple minutes ago.
Well, you're an interesting case, Cliff, because your intuition is
Thank you.
Very, very rapid and it's your initial instance of knowing, and you'll say something sometimes off the cuff, not recognizing it was intuition. This has happened so many times. And later I'll say, you knew it. You kind of said it. And you'll say, oh my God, I did. That's right.
Or the opposite too, where I don't say it, and then I get
that's what
crap.
I mean.
Yeah, I get crap for not having told people. Like, hey,
right,
why didn't you tell us? You
Yeah.
saw
I mean,
this.
how many times have you guys said, dang it, I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that. I was nudged that way and I did not listen. Shoot. But then it just gets you to recognize how to do it next time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it goes back to what Kelsey says, and as well as you, Jenny, it's practice. I mean, we say this over and over in our podcast. It's whatever we're talking about. It's always like practice, practice, practice. But, you have to learn to hear it. And so
I would say
practice.
listen.
Yeah. Well, practice at listening then, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a game that I like to play with my kids, though, to help them develop their intuition.
Okay.
And so what we'll do is we'll hold a card against our head facing outwards, and we have to guess what number it is.
Oh,
And so, yeah. And so,
I've
like,
played
first,
that with your kids.
I have too, a lot.
yeah, it's exactly. So it's a cool game because you get to think, like, first you start off with the colors, like, is it red or is it black? Right. And so this is how we get them into it. And they're getting pretty good. Emmett, my oldest, can actually like tell me what feelings I'm feeling.
Well,
And-
that your oldest and you have a very strong connection telepathically. Your second, Kyleo, that we were mentioning earlier, when I played these games, just to play a game, I don't even know if it was purposely. I think I was like, hey, my little Pisces soul, let's play some psychic games. And I said, what color am I holding? And it was a crayon. And legit, this kid said cyan. And I was like, what?
I remember that. Yeah.
Not just blue, right?
No.
Cyan. And I looked at the crayon and went, huh? Like, how did he do that? And then I was so fascinated. I played all night with him with shapes and yeah.
What was cool is that he not only said cyan, but he said, that's your favorite color.
That's right. He did. And he is right.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I was just like, listen, can I just take him home and study him for a little while?
Well, we know who's going to be a guest on this podcast very soon.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh. My little 8-year-old Kyleo.
Right. And, my son and I have a very strong connection, like you were mentioning with your oldest as well. And we'll have intuitions at the same time from totally different areas. And he'll say, hey, I was thinking about you and saw this bird. And I'll say, I was just writing something about you and it was about that bird. I mean, it's just, I think connection is a huge part of intuition too. I just don't know how to explain it.
No.
Yeah. And well, you're on the same vibration. I think you're in the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, if we really want to go into like the psychic stuff, that's what we're trying to do is move our vibration into a certain specific frequency to communicate. It's like the radio station, right? So you're trying to dial in to a specific frequency to pick up those messages. And I think with your kids, you're kind of already within that same range.
Yeah.
Well, Cliff and I have this back and forth when we're together a lot.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
we'll say, I just said that. You just said that. I mean, we just thought that,
No,
and so it is about
I'm
connection.
pretty sure I just said it, though.
You might have said it, but then I went, don't read my mind. Get out of my head.
Oh,
All right.
God. I tell that to my husband. I'm like, stop.
All right. So let's ask the ultimate question. Is intuition ever wrong?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah.
I believe personally it is not ever wrong. What I believe is wrong is our interpretation and or what we do with it or how we explain it. And whether ego gets involved, to be honest, because there's a lot of psychics that receive information and then they kind of twist it maybe a little bit to serve them or to serve them being validated in a way. And that's why it's important not to edit intuition or anything that you receive from the higher realms, in my opinion.
Yeah. I kind of look at intuition as like it's a compass and it shows us the direction, but it doesn't give us a detailed map. We still have to navigate. And that's where all the listening and the tuning into the right frequency comes. But yeah, it's I don't believe that it's wrong either, as long as you're tuned into it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a time where my intuition was wrong, and I don't think I've ever had a time where it was wrong. But maybe my interpretation or perception, I got the message wrong. Yeah. So same thing. It's very interesting because I think I mean, I do a lot of practice now, like testing my intuition with clients. When I give them readings, I always tell them like, "Oh, this is what I'm picking up. Come back next week and let me know if that actually
always.
happens."
Yeah,
Always.
That's a great way to test yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But no, I don't think it's wrong either.
Whether you view intuition as a spiritual gift, a natural human ability, guidance from a higher self, or simply the subconscious mind processing information faster than conscious thought, it remains one of the most fascinating aspects of human experience. If intuition truly is available to everyone, then maybe psychic ability isn't something reserved for a gifted few. Maybe it begins with the same quiet inner voice we've all experienced at one time or another. The question is whether we're willing to listen. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep paying attention to those little nudges from life. They may be trying to tell you something. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, I'm Cliff.
I'm Jenny. Listen.
And I'm Kelsey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and please leave a review.
Yes, please.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.